In 2016, I published a book called Reach: From Single Mom on Welfare to Digital Entrepreneur. And that is this book. That woman was me. In 2008, I went from being a journalist, a writer, an author, a simultaneous interpreter. I speak English and Spanish. In 2008 was the recession. It was the year that a lot of people lost everything. And what I in particular lost was my marriage. I was 45 then. I lost my marriage. I lost savings money, a source of income. I was writing for newspapers and they were laying people off. I was translating for publishers and they didn't need translations. So suddenly, like, all my sources of income dried up. My then husband also got laid off. He had nothing. And our marriage actually had been not in good shape for a while. Years actually, and we really did try everything to make it work. We tried therapy, we went to seminars, we tried separation under the same roof, which I don't really recommend. The point is that we just couldn't keep on going, and we had two little kids, 4 years old and 7 years old. There came a point when I moved on my own and we co-parented our children, but we had let's talk about me because it's my story really, right? I always say that my story ends where somebody else's begins. I ended up on food stamps. The way that happened was that one day I realized, wow, I just can't, I can't find work. I've always been self-employed. I've always worked for myself by choice. So that meant that I didn't have a lot of experience doing things that even my 16-year-old today can do, which is, be a busser or serve tables and be a hostess. I had, at 45, I was not hiring material in that sense at all. So even the most menial jobs, I was overqualified and they wouldn't want me. It was a dark time for me. I sold all my family's heirlooms that I had taken with me from Spain to the United States. And if you have family in a different country, you know how lonely it can feel when you're raising your kids somewhere else, far from their extended family. And for me, like, everything that I owned that was gold or had, it was like my grandfather's ring when he died, that was given to me after that, and things that had passed in my family from generation to generation, things that had been given to my kids when they were little, and they were just gifts. They really didn't have a lot of monetary value, but they had a lot of sentimental value, and I had to sell every single one of those items. I describe that in this book, in Reach. There's a part where I remember taking my 4-year-old to a jeweler, and what I thought was going to be a very simple transaction ended up being a couple of hours of him weighing and measuring and making sure that each piece was really gold, only to, in the end, give me a check that was barely enough to cover the rent. And that's why I never wore gold anymore. I swore it off. My family helped me a little bit, but everybody was going through their own issues in that year, and so they gave me what they could, and I made the best of it. There was a moment when a friend said to me, well, why don't you apply for food stamps? He went to our fridge and saw there was nothing, and I said, but that's for poor people. He looked at me and raised his eyebrows, and I thought, oh, I am poor. I piggybacked off of the neighbor's Wi-Fi because I didn't have money for my own. I Googled how to apply for food stamps. I did get the food stamps, and going up the stairs with my daughters with all the grocery bags was better than Christmas. And the girls still remember it. Now my kids are almost 17 and almost 14. Goodness, almost 10 years ago. Wow. I reinvented myself. I couldn't keep on knocking on doors that were closed. And I didn't realize they were closed until I started knocking on them. And I realized, well, this is not where I need to be knocking on doors. I'm not going to tell you the whole thing because otherwise you won't read this very short book. I've always done sports. In a different video, I think I explained about my mental health issues, depression, anxiety, etc., and how I've, for my entire life since I was a teen really or younger, I would use sports as a way to feel better in general, and I still do that. In that time when I was going through a rough spot, I signed up for dance classes thanks to one of my best friends. It was social dancing, it was Latin dancing, and it really helped me feel better about myself. It helped me feel grounded. I sometimes took my kids with me, sometimes I went by myself depending if they were with their dad. But actually on that dance floor, and thanks to that dance floor, a lot of things happened for me. That was, somebody did a really wonderful act of kindness, which I'm not going to tell you about because I might do a video just on that act of kindness. I've spoken about it in conferences and it's moving. I've written blog posts about it. It was an act of kindness of somebody who really didn't know me that well, and it changed my life. It made me recover my faith in myself. I speak of other acts of kindness towards my daughters and myself in the book as well. It was this feeling of, if they believe in me, I need to believe in myself. I can get out of this. It was really hard. I mean, some days I could hardly get out of bed. What got me out of the whole funk really was serendipity, where Facebook was barely starting. A young entrepreneur, much younger than myself, saw on Facebook that I was a writer. And he said to me, you know, I have this blog about coupons and I need a writer, and would you write these, you know, blogs? And he only paid $12 per blog. I said yes, like I had been asked to write the great American novel. I belted out those blog posts like my life depended on it, which it actually did. That opened the floodgates to so much more. It made me realize that I could still make a living writing, which is what I had always done. I could still make a living with words. I just had to change where I did it. The moment that that clicked in my head, I learned everything I could about SEO and HTML, and little by little social media came around and I started playing around with that, and my brain seemed really wired for it. So if you're young, make sure you realize that you can make money online. And I'm going to tell you that 10 years later, I mean, it happened way sooner, but 10 years later, I'm making a full-time living with my digital business, Viva 50 Media LLC, which I co-founded with my husband because I remarried, met the love of my life, and remarried at 50. So my personal life, my family life, my professional life all flourished in my late 40s and went even farther and better in my 50s. If you are young, know you can make a living online, a good living. If you are a midlifer or older, you can also make a living online, or however you want. The book in itself is not only meant for influencers and bloggers and all that. It's more for women of, or men really, of any age who would like to hear a story of survival and comeback. And at the end of each chapter, I wrote self-reflection tools and short exercises that you can do that helped me get through the toughest times. For example, when I was really depressed at one point, I told myself, you can't be like this in front of your kids. And every night I wrote 3 things that I was grateful for. Sometimes there were more things, sometimes there were fewer, but I made a point of doing that absolutely every day. I made a worry jar, which is where I wrote on pieces of paper all my worries, like I'm not going to be able to pay the rent, I'm going to be evicted, I'm scared that I'm going to end up homeless, I'm scared that I won't be able to feed my children. I wrote that on little papers and I put it in a jar. After a certain time, I would open the jar again, and some of those things had resolved themselves and things got better. My eldest daughter at 8 or so started doing the same thing, and she told me how it helped her get ahead. This is the only book of 18 or 19 books that I published that I self-published. All my other books have been published by publishers, mainly in Spanish, because I was raised in Spain and started publishing in Spanish. But the reason why I did this one myself is because I wanted it to be short. When you publish with a publisher, you commit to a certain number of words and pages, and I really didn't want to put a lot of fluff in this one. And I also wanted to be able to give it away. Amazon doesn't let me give it away for free completely, and if you buy the physical book, even less so, because there's the cost of printing it. And if you keep an eye out, every once in a while, it will be free, completely $0 on Kindle, because that's the only place where I can make it cheaper. I wrote it for other people going through a tough time at any age and wanting to know and believe and have proof that you can actually climb out of the darkness, and not only that, but reinvent yourself and make a full-time living doing what you most love. In my case, it's words, it's being a communicator. Now it's digital. Before it used to be on paper, and it still is on paper sometimes, but your case could be different. But if you or somebody you know is going through a tough time, please, please, please read it. Reach: From Single Mom on Welfare to Digital Entrepreneur. Please let me know if you got it, and please let me know what you think. What motivated me to make this video is that people I don't know are buying the book and are leaving me really positive reviews. So I just want as many people as possible to benefit from somebody else's crappy, but ultimately wonderful experience. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I always say it wrong in English. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I did it! I did it!